Hi, I'm Mark, and today I want to talk about a long-awaited resignation. Richard Sharp, who previously worked at investment bank Goldman Sachs, was providing an £800,000 loan to Boris Johnson shortly before his appointment as BBC boss. A little later, the then Prime Minister proposed him for the BBC post. Now, there are some nepotism allegations, and they had consequences. The BBC chairman Richard Sharp has resigned for helping then Prime Minister Boris Johnson get a personal loan before he was called to the post. An investigative report released on Friday concluded that Sharp failed to disclose any potential conflict of interest. He had concealed the connection to Johnson during the selection process. He intends to remain in office until a successor is decided, though. The Sunday Times newspaper reported in January that Sharp had helped longtime friend Johnson get a loan of up to £800,000 at the end of 2020. Shortly thereafter, as I said, Sharp was officially nominated by Johnson for the BBC post. But Sharp again emphasized that the violation was unintentional and not essential. Nevertheless, I have decided that it is right to put the interests of the BBC first, he said. Otherwise, there's a risk that the case will distract from the well-being of the public broadcaster. Johnson, as usual, had also denied the allegations. Sharp was formerly the manager of the incumbent Prime Minister Rishi Sunak at the investment bank Goldman Sachs and later his advisor at the Treasury Department. Before his appointment as BBC boss, he made large donations to Sunak and Johnson's Conservative Party. The chairman of the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, is appointed by the monarch on the proposal of the Prime Minister and the Minister for Culture. The position is similar to that of a supervisory board chairman and not an intendant like we have them here. The public broadcaster is not involved in the selection process. But this thing is only the last in a long list of scandals surrounding Boris Johnson. So, just for fun, let's just recap some examples of the past today. First, we had, of course, Brexit. Johnson was one of the leading figures in the campaign to leave the European Union in the 2016 referendum. He was accused of spreading misinformation and exaggerations during the campaign, such as the widely debunked claim that leaving the EU would save £350 million a week that could be spent on the National Health Service. And then there are a lot of affair allegations. In 2021, Johnson faced accusations of having an extramarital affair with Jennifer Arcuri, a businesswoman who received public funds and was given preferential treatment by the government when Johnson was mayor of London. Johnson denied any wrongdoing, but an investigation by the Greater London Authority found that he had acted with an apparent conflict of interest and had failed to declare a potential conflict of interest. Then there's the COVID-19 response. Johnson has faced criticism for his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, including delays in implementing lockdown measures and shortages of personal protective equipment for healthcare workers. He has also been accused of failing to provide adequate support for businesses and workers affected by the pandemic. And then there is his Islamophobia. Johnson has been accused of making derogatory comments about Muslims, including comparing women who wear the burqa to letterboxes and bank robbers. He has been criticized for this failure to apologize for these comments and for not doing enough to tackle Islamophobia within the Conservative Party. And then there are domestic disputes. Johnson has had several high-profile disputes with his partners, including allegations of domestic violence. In 2019, police were called to the home of Johnson and his partner after neighbors reported hearing a loud argument. Johnson denied any wrongdoing, but the incident raised questions about his fitness for office. And then we have the Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe topic. In 2016, when Johnson was Foreign Secretary, he made comments in Parliament that were later used by Iranian authorities to justify a longer prison sentence for British-Iranian citizen Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, who was accused of espionage. Johnson was criticized for his comments and for not doing enough to secure or rescue Zaghari Ratcliffe's release. And there are misconduct allegations all over. In 2019, the Independent Office for Public Conduct opened an investigation into allegations of misconduct by Johnson during his time as Mayor of London, specifically relating to his friendship with Jennifer Arcuri and the allocation of public funds to her businesses. The investigation concluded that Johnson had not committed a criminal offense, but, as I mentioned earlier, that there was a political and ethical issue regarding his actions. And then we have the watermelon smiles. In a 2002 column for the Daily Telegraph, Johnson described African people as having watermelon smiles and referred to flag-waving pickaninnies, that's a derogatory term for black children. He was criticized for the racist language used in his article and has been accused of racism on other occasions as well. And then the Russian interference. Johnson has been accused of failing to take adequate action to protect UK elections from Russian interference. In 2019, a parliamentary report found that the UK government had badly underestimated the threat posed by Russia and that Johnson had failed to adequately investigate allegations of Russian interference in the Brexit referendum. And of course, there are his personal finances. Johnson has faced scrutiny over his personal finances, including his use of offshore tax havens and his failure to declare a conflict of interest when his partner, Carrie Simmons at the time, received funding from a wealthy businessman. These issues have raised questions about Johnson's integrity and his suitability for public office. And then there was the Garden Bridge project. As Mayor of London, Johnson championed the Garden Bridge project, a proposed pedestrian bridge over the River Thames. The project was ultimately cancelled after it was revealed that costs had spiraled out of control and that Johnson had not adequately scrutinized the project's finances. Critics accused Johnson of wasting taxpayer money on a vanity project. And then there are the Hillsborough comments. In a 2004 article for The Spectator magazine, Johnson accused Liverpool football fans of wallowing in their victim status following the 1989 Hillsborough disaster, in which 96 fans were killed. He was widely criticized for the comments, which were seen as insensitive and disrespectful to the victims and their families. And all those conflicts of interest, of course. In 2018, it emerged that Johnson had accepted a £14,000 holiday to Mystique from the businessman and Conservative Party donor David Ross. Johnson did not declare the holiday in the Parliamentary Register of Interests and was accused of a conflict of interest given Ross's link to the education sector, which Johnson was then responsible for as Foreign Secretary. And then, of course, we had the Brexit negotiations as well. During his time as Prime Minister, Johnson has faced criticism for his handling of Brexit negotiations with the EU, including his decision to prorogue Parliament in 2019, which was later ruled unlawful by the Supreme Court, and his failure to secure a deal with the EU until the final weeks before the UK's departure. And not to talk about the fines and the Partygate affairs, Wallpaper Gate. There's so much I could add. I just thought I'd take a selection. I haven't talked about that often in my video, but this was just a small selection of all of this. And maybe some other things Johnson said or wrote might be part of the next game on Outside Views Games that's coming up on May 15th. This month, again, there will be a mid-month game there because I managed to prepare it. And this time, and I don't know why I didn't think about that one earlier, like for starting the channel, this time it's going to be a Brexit quiz. So, as usual, it's 100 questions, and of course you get the answers, but it's 100 questions about Brexit and the whole history of Brexit and everything. And there are some quotes in there where you have to tell me who said that or who wrote that. Maybe something is in there from Johnson as well, one of his weirder kind ones, who knows. But nevertheless, the video will be out on May 15th, and it will be, the whole topic of that game will be Brexit. If you haven't been to one of those games yet, on Outside Views games, there are always 100 questions. You can play it with friends easily. When I ask a question, then you press the pause button, so the one whose turn it is as a player at the moment can give his answer, and then you press play again, and then I give you the correct answer, and you just collect points for every correct answer. And the Brexit trivia will work exactly the same. So don't forget May 15th. It's not May 4th. May the 4th be with you. But it's May 15th. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.